Okay, so we're going to start with Chapter 1 homework. So since we have the previous video, I'm going to just quickly go through. We'll go to our My ASU homepage. We'll click on the macroeconomic principles, and that, remember, will take us directly to our Canvas page. Everything can be found on the home page. We'll scroll down to Section 1 material, and we're going to start with the problems and applications. So it's the problems and applications are the title for each chapter homework in the Cengage MindTap system. So we'll start with chapter 1. We'll click on that, and it will then take you to a new page which will tell you to load the problems. So we'll load them, and it will come up. It's pretty quick. And we'll start with question number 1. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to go through and try and give you some guidance as you approach these questions. So we'll start off with question number 1. All right, so I'll read the questions. It says, which of the following describes some of the trade-offs faced by a family deciding whether to buy a new car? And then it says, check all that apply. So what you want to do with that is read that statement a couple times, is my suggestion. And actually, I would suggest that for all of these questions. And then you want to think about, what do we mean by trade-offs? So in economics, the trade-offs are what we're having to give up. So the question wants you to read through, you're given 3 choices there, and you need to decide which of those 3 things, or maybe all 3 of them, would be considered a trade-off for a family that's deciding whether they should buy a new car or not. So that's how you want to approach this. So we'll do a couple of these questions. So the first one says, an increase in the family's car payment means the family will be unable to afford a vacation. So that's telling you that, when this family is going to buy a new car, if they choose to do so, is going to cause them to have this new payment they otherwise wouldn't have. And it will be at the cost of being able to go on a vacation. So would that be considered a trade-off? Is that something that the family has to give up by buying this new car? And it's telling you right there, they can't afford the vacation. So that's a trade-off. The next one says, a newer model offers better protection and functions, but it's more expensive than an older model. So again, the question at the start is saying, they're trying to decide whether or not they should buy a new car or not. And if they go ahead and buy the new car, yes, it's telling you you're going to get more protection and nicer functions, but it's more expensive than an older car. So again, is that considered a trade-off? Well, I'm going to tell you the answers here. Absolutely, that's a trade-off, because it's more expensive to the family. The third one, and I'm doing this because I want you to see how you need to approach these. You've got to work through these very slowly. The third one says the vehicle is available in several colors. Okay, so those are choices. But are those trade-offs, having a different color? I mean, is anything being given up here by the color that they select? And the answer, just by reading that, it just tells you the vehicle's available in several colors, but it doesn't say they're giving absolutely anything up. Then that would not be a trade-off. Okay, we'll move on. I'll go a little quicker. Which of the following describes some of the trade-offs faced by a member of Congress deciding how much to spend on national parks? And again, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to check all that apply. So as you're looking at these 3, you're given 3 choices here. You want to do exactly what we just did in the previous question. And you've got to do a couple things on all of these questions. Is 1, you want to think about the point of view the question is asking you from. So this is a member of Congress's point of view. And 2, you want to really keep in mind what we mean by trade-offs, because the question is saying, describe some of the trade-offs. So again, these would be things that a member of Congress would be having to think about as a trade-off. So the first question says, national parks are essential to protecting wildlife from extinction. And as you're reading these questions, you really want to, you really have to be very careful Because you may agree with that statement that national parks are essential to protecting wildlife from extinction. But is that truly a trade-off that a member of Congress is having to incorporate when they're deciding whether or not to spend money on national parks? Is that really a trade-off to that member? The second one says money spent on national parks benefits park visitors, but alternatively, the money could be spent on highways to benefit drivers. Okay, so that one right there, there's a choice there or a trade-off. You can either have money going to benefiting people that are going to the parks, or you could use that money that could go to benefit better highways. So if you're the member of Congress, would that perhaps not be a trade-off to you? And then number 3 says dog ownership will surge as a result of better national parks. Well, again, like that first question, or excuse me, that first answer there, where it could very well be true, that could very well happen. As a member of Congress, is that really going to be a trade-off that a member of Congress would have to be facing? So part of the point of this question number 1, even though it's all wordy, is trying to get you to really think about whose point of view are we looking at. A member of Congress is going to be very different than an individual when they are having to decide trade-offs and make decisions. We'll move on. The next part says, which of the following describes some of the trade-offs faced by a company president deciding whether to open a new factory? So again, do the same thing as we've been doing. Think about trade-offs, so that's something the company is going to have to give up, and think about it from the point of view of, in this case, the company president. So as you read through all 3 of those answers there, if all 3 of them, this could be a little hint here, are trade-offs that the president would have to be taken into account, then they're probably all going to be trade-offs that president has to deal with. The next part, which of the following describes some of the trade-offs faced by a professor deciding how much time to spend preparing for class? So again, you got the same thing going here. It's the professor's point of view, and it's what the professor will have to give up. So first one says he likes his students a lot. Well, okay, that's great. So he likes his student a lot. But is that anything having to be given up by the professor? So the same thing as all the previous questions, you want to be looking for the answers below there that something is having to be given up. And if something's being given up, then that's a trade-off, because that's what trade-offs are. The next part says, which of the following describes some of the trade-offs faced by a recent college graduate deciding whether they should go to grad school or not? So same thing here. You're going to want to approach that question, and you're going to ask yourself, okay, it's the perspective of the recent college grad, and then what are the things, the trade-offs that college grad would be having to give up? So the question 2 says many of her friends decide to go to graduate school. Okay, well that could be a truth, but that truth, is that a trade-off? So be careful. If they're just statements being made, but there's no trade-off involved in the statement, then that's probably not going to be a trade-off to that person. Okay, we're going to continue on, and we'll go to question 2. So question 2 reads, you're planning to spend Sunday working at your part-time job, but a friend asks you to go rock climbing. So the question then starts to ask you, which of the following are included in the true cost? So the true cost of going rock climbing, meaning what are all the things that you have to give up in order to go rock climbing? Or another way of saying it is, what are all the expenses that you're having to incur? So again, what is the true cost? So that's how in this particular question you want to approach this. So The first one says the rental of any rock climbing equipment you need. So if you're going to go rock climbing and you need to rent the equipment, then would that not be a cost? The next one says the cost of your rock climbing shoes, but notice it says you purchased last year. So would that be a cost of today, or is that a cost of the past? So if it's a cost of the past, then you already incurred it, and we don't need to include it in today's true cost. So be careful. The next part says the wages you forgo by going rock climbing. So if because you wouldn't work that day, you go rock climbing, have you not foregone those wages? And if so, that's a cost to you. If you decide you want to hire a guide, excuse me, to show you around when you go rock climbing, that would be a cost that you would have to incur. So when you answer this question, you want to check mark the ones where it's an actual cost today that you would be incurring. And the next part is the same question, only it's saying instead of going rock climbing, it would be you'd be working in your garden all day. And so this is asking pretty much same type of answers to the question. So I think you should be able to go ahead and do that question without any of my help. Okay, question number 3. So question 3 says you have $20 in your wallet. Okay, so you have this $20 bill, and you have this choice between using the amount to enter into a baseball pool, which would give you the opportunity to win $80, and spending the money on buying something else. So again, on these questions, sometimes you need to read them 2 or 3 times. So again, pick out the pertinent information here. So you have $20 in your wallet. That's number 1. Then the second part of this says you have a choice. So the 2 choices you have are as follows. You can take the $20 and go into a baseball pool, and you might win $80. Okay, it's might. It doesn't say you will win it, it says you might win it. Or you can spend the money on buying something else. So the question then says, which of the following is the opportunity cost of entering a baseball pool with the $20? So the question is asking, opportunity cost is what is it that you're actually giving up? So as far as what you're actually giving up with the $20 is it would be what you would actually be able to do with the $20. So the opportunity of winning $80 is a possibility, but what if you took that $20 and you didn't win the $80? Is the opportunity of winning $80 really an opportunity cost when you may not even get the 80? So as you answer this question, be a little bit careful. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is just to start you thinking a little bit about incentives that policy can have on people's behavior. So it reads, a 1996 bill reforming the federal government's anti-poverty programs limited many welfare recipients to only 2 years of benefits. So what that's saying is in 1996, a federal bill came about, and if somebody fell on hard times, they would be limited to receiving assistance from the government for no more than 2 years. So the question is asking, when that happened, when that change took place, that the limited time of benefits people could receive capped out at 2 years, what potentially could that do to people's behavior? So it says this change gives people the incentives to find a job, blank, and then you can click on the arrow and it'll say either more or less quickly than if welfare benefits lasted forever. So that question is wanting you to ask yourself, would you be more inclined to want to find a job quicker if you know in 2 years you won't be able to get any help from the government, or would you be less inclined to find a job quicker? That's what that's asking. And then the next one says, as a result of the change in working incentives, led by the 1996 bill reform, the economy will be, and then again you have the choice, either less or more efficient. And when you answer this, whether you agree with this or not, you want to be thinking of this from the economic standpoint of efficiency. And with efficiency, think of the production possibility frontier. What we always want to have happen is we want to have all our resources being used to their maximum potential. So from an economic standpoint, we're always going to want people able to work. We'll continue on. Okay, this question reads, which of the following government activities is motivated by a concern about efficiency? So you want to click all that apply. So the word efficiency, remember, is this idea in economics that we're using our resources, as I mentioned in the previous question, to their maximum or to their potential. So we want to look at this question and say, okay, which of these activities, from a policy standpoint, would we want to think about efficiency? So as you answer this question, you'll want to be looking at statements that have something to do with how well something is run. So regulating cable TV prices, that's going to be, we're looking at regulating something well. We want to be sure that prices are being regulated properly. Breaking up Standard Oil, which once owned 90% of all oil refineries into several smaller companies. Again, we'd want to be sure that that's being motivated by an efficient use of our resources. Prohibiting smoking in public places, again, that's an efficiency concern. So the ones you want to be checking off here are things that have to do with being efficient. And then the last part says the market failure caused by the concentration of oil refineries by Standard Oils is known as, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to give you the answer to this. That's going to be called market power. So this is more of a microeconomic type of an idea. But when one company has a huge amount of control in an industry, that's known to be a company that has a lot of market power, meaning they have the ability to generally price it at a higher rate and produce less. So for this part of the question, make sure you pick my market power. I'm just telling you that. Okay, sometimes you'll just have these random statements, so you may have to read these maybe 3 or 4 times to kind of get the gist of it. And I would suggest that as you're reading them, make sure you click on the arrows and see what it is the options are. So it says, because poor people are blank, so it could either be less or more likely to have adequate health care, guaranteeing everyone in society the best health care would likely, again, blank, either be decrease or increase equality. So this question is saying, what happens here? So are poor people that are relatively poorer or have lower income, are they more or less likely to have good health care? I think you'll be able to answer that one. Generally, people that have less money don't have as good of a plan as those that have more money. Comma, guaranteeing everyone in society the best health care would blank equality. So if we were trying to make things more equal amongst people, if we guarantee everyone in society should have a good health care, what's going to happen to equality? And I think you can answer that. And then this part says, paying laid off workers unemployment benefits until they find a new job will likely, and again, you're going to click on this and see it says decrease or increase equality, and blank, increase or decrease efficiency. So this is a great question to kind of see how in economics sometimes there can be a cross between allowing us to have more equality, but it can be at the expense of efficiency. So take that into account as you answer this particular question. I'll move on.